If you have ever frozen mid-sentence because your brain was just frantically searching some sort of mental dictionary, you are definitely not alone. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here to talk about this.
Yeah, we are tackling a really massive hurdle for language learners today based on the notes we have gathered. We're looking at how to stop translating in your head and train your brain to actually think in English.
It is such a universal experience. You study the vocabulary, you understand the grammar rules on paper, but
In the real world, things just fall apart.
exactly, they completely fall
But
apart.
that is exactly the struggle. You know the words. But when it's time to actually speak to someone, you feel incredibly slow. You get exhausted, you get nervous, and, well, the conversation moves on before you can even build your sentence. And reading through our sources today, the reason is quite simple. Your brain is taking a thought, building it in your native language, and then trying to translate it into English, word by word, in real time.
Which takes an immense amount of mental energy. So our mission today is to look at the research and unpack why the brain insists on doing this. We're going to break down some very common myths about what it actually takes to become fluent. And most importantly, we're going to leave you with a highly practical toolkit.
Yeah, a toolkit of simple daily habits to build that English thinking muscle.
Right. Small things you can do every day.
So if you are listening to this right now, we are going to give you the practical steps to overcome that fear of making mistakes and help you speak more comfortably. But I want to start by asking the most fundamental question from the notes. Why does the brain do this in the first place? Like, why can't we just naturally think in a new language once we learn the vocabulary?
Well, it really comes down to the psychology of safety. The brain always prefers the strongest, most comfortable path. It is designed to save energy and protect you.
So it's protecting me by making me freeze up.
In a way, yeah. For you, your native language is that safe path. Your first language is still firmly in control because it feels fast, it feels easy, and it carries zero risk of making you look foolish.
Wait, so you are saying it is not a lack of vocabulary that makes us freeze? It is actually a psychological instinct to avoid risk? That shifts the blame completely.
It does shift the blame. English feels risky.
Mm,
When you try to speak English, your brain senses danger. It thinks, oh no, we might make a mistake here. We might feel embarrassed.
right.
So it runs back to the safest place it knows your native language.
Yeah.
Our notes call this a high cognitive load, but basically when you translate, you are forcing your brain to do double the processing work.
Double the work because you are building the architecture of the sentence in your native tongue, and then you have to, like, paint it with English words. No wonder people feel so physically tired after speaking English for an hour.
Exactly. Now, to be fair, the research points out that translating is completely normal when you are a beginner. It's how everybody starts building their foundation. You have to connect the new word to a concept you already know.
Right, but the issue is when we stay in that beginner stage for too long, if we rely on that translation bridge forever, we will never actually get faster.
That is the crucial insight. If you keep doing double the work, you will always feel slow. And this brings up a massive myth that keeps people stuck. So many learners think that thinking in English requires perfect grammar.
Or that it's some kind of magical switch that flips in your head once you reach an advanced level.
Yes, but the reality is that thinking in English is simply a habit. It is not magic, and it has absolutely nothing to do with perfect grammar. It's a behavioral loop that you have to train.
I think this is a really good moment for a quick thought experiment. If you are listening right now, just pause and think, when do you rely on translation the most? Is it when you are well rested and talking to a friend? Or is it when you are tired, nervous at work, or trying to use highly complex words to impress someone?
For most people, it's stress or fatigue. When the pressure is high, the brain abandons the new habit and just takes the easy way out.
Which makes perfect sense. So if stress and risk are what send us running back to our native language, how do we make the brain feel safe in English? Looking at the notes, it seems the answer lies in what we feed it. We need to talk about input.
Input is everything. The first major solution is to feed your brain enough English to make it feel like a familiar, comfortable environment. If your brain feels comfortable with the sounds and rhythms of English, it won't panic and retreat to your native language so quickly.
But wait, the notes are very specific about how to get this input. There is a rule here. Consistency is much more important than duration. I had to play devil's advocate for a second. Is 10 or 15 minutes of listening really enough? If someone wants to be fluent quickly, wouldn't a 3-hour intensive study session on a Sunday be much better?
It seems logical, but it actually backfires. Yeah, think about how habits are formed. The brain needs daily proof. that the new environment is safe. It is far more effective to listen to 10 to 15 minutes of English every single day than to study for 3 hours on Sunday and completely ignore the language for the rest of the week.
Ah.
Daily exposure tells your brain, hey, this language is a normal part of our everyday life. There is no need to panic.
That is incredibly freeing. You don't need a massive block of free time. You can get this input by listening to simple podcasts for learners, watching YouTube videos where people speak clearly, or reading short stories.
And when you engage with this daily input, there's a vital mindset shift you have to make. You have to actively tell yourself, I do not need to understand 100%. I just need to follow the main idea.
Oh, I am so guilty of ignoring that rule. Whenever I watch a video in a new language, the second I hear a word I don't know, I pause the video.
Let me guess, you grab your phone.
Immediately. I open my dictionary app, type the word, look at the translation, and then go back to the video. I always thought that was the right way to learn. But the notes highlight this as a major danger zone. Why is that bad? Isn't looking up words how we learn?
It is how you learn individual words, but it is terrible for learning how to think in the language. The danger of the dictionary is that it breaks your immersion.
Because I'm stopping the flow.
Right. If you constantly pause to check translations, your brain never gets the chance to learn how to stay in English. You are literally practicing your translation habit.
So by using the dictionary too much, I am reinforcing the bridge between English and my native language instead of building a new, standalone English thought.
Precisely. You're training your brain to rely on the safety net. The alternative is to focus entirely on the message. Let the English wash over you. If you understand the context of the story, just keep going. Your brain will start to guess the meaning of unknown words from the context.
Which is exactly how native speakers learn new words. That makes me wonder how we can actively practice this without just passively listening. And that brings us to the really actionable part of our notes, the daily mini challenges. These are 4 incredibly practical exercises to train the English thinking muscle.
These are brilliant because they are low stress, you can do them alone, which completely removes the fear of being judged by someone else.
Let's unpack the first one. It is called narrating actions.
This is a 1 to 2 minute daily habit where you simply describe what you are doing right now in simple English. You become the narrator of your own life.
So if I am in my kitchen in the morning, I just think to myself, I am making coffee. Now I am washing the dishes. Then I will go to work. It sounds almost too simple. How does this actually help?
It helps because it forces you to connect English words directly to physical objects and actions in real time without your native language acting as a middleman. And the most important rule here is that the grammar does not need to be perfect.
Oh, that's a relief.
Yeah, if you think, I make coffee instead of I am making coffee, it doesn't matter. The goal is just to stay in the language.
Keep the English switch turned on. That leads right into the second exercise, which is slightly more structured, the 1-minute monologue.
This requires a bit more focus. You set a timer on your phone for exactly 1 minute. You choose a very easy topic, something like my room, my morning, or my best friend, and then you speak out loud without stopping.
And the strict rule here is that you cannot plan your sentences in your native language before you speak. You just dive in.
You just start. You use easy phrases. If you stumble or if you have to repeat yourself, that is totally fine. Repeating is much better than stopping to translate in silence.
I want to try this right now to see how it actually feels. I'm going to talk about my morning, but I'll just do it for about 10 seconds. Ready?
Go for it.
Okay. This morning I woke up, I looked at my phone. The news was complicated. I drank water. The water was cold. I felt a little tired.
That is fantastic. Notice what you did there. You paused. You searched for a word to describe the news, and instead of stopping to translate a complex thought, you just used the word complicated.
I did. I could feel my brain wanting to say something deeper, but I knew I didn't have the vocabulary, so I just grabbed the closest simple word.
And that is exactly the skill we are trying to build. You stayed in English,
Yeah.
you used everyday vocabulary, and you didn't let the lack of a perfect word stop you.
It actually felt really liberating because the goal was just to survive the timer, not to deliver a perfect speech.
Now it's your turn, listener. Right now, describe your room in simple English in your head. Try it for just 10 seconds. Look around. What do you see?
Just name the objects. The chair is blue. The window is open. Just force the brain to connect the English word to the visual.
Perfect, which ties beautifully into the third exercise, creating an English-only zone.
Ah, I like this one.
This concept is all about taking one small daily routine that you already do automatically and designating it as an English-only zone in your mind.
Like brushing your teeth or making breakfast.
Exactly. or your walk to the bus stop. For those 5 minutes, you tell your brain, we only think in English until we reach the bus. You don't have to carve out extra time in your busy schedule to study.
You are just replacing the language of your internal monologue during a time when your brain is usually just wandering anyway.
Right. It's habit stacking.
I love that because it anchors the new habit to an old routine. Now, let's look at the fourth exercise. The notes call this the circumlocution hack. I feel like we really need to unpack this concept because it sounds a bit technical, but it is arguably the most powerful tool for actual conversations.
Circumlocution is an absolute lifesaver. It literally means talking around a word. Replace the translation with an explanation.
Right. We all experience that moment of panic in a conversation where we need a specific word, but we only know it in our native language. Our brain hits a brick wall.
But instead of reaching for your phone to translate it or just freezing in awkward silence, circumlocution means you explain the concept using other simple English words that you already know.
The notes provide a perfect example of this. Imagine you are at a pharmacy and you need to speak to the pharmacist, but you completely blank on the English word pharmacist.
If you are translating, your brain just stops until you find that exact noun.
But if you're using circumlocution, you don't panic. You just say, I need to talk to the person who works in the pharmacy and gives you medicine.
The person who gives medicine.
Mhm.
Anyone listening to you will instantly understand what you mean, and they might even reply, oh, the pharmacist. And then you just learn the word naturally.
Precisely. You are teaching your brain to be a problem solver in English. You are training it to be flexible rather than rigid.
But doing all of these exercises, narrating simple actions, talking around words, accepting complicated instead of a fancy word, requires something very difficult.
Letting go of perfection.
Yes, it requires us to be okay with sounding a little bit childish. And that is the biggest psychological hurdle in our notes.
This is the emotional barrier that keeps so many learners permanently stuck in translation mode. People have this deep fear of making mistakes. They think they must wait until their grammar is flawless before they allow themselves to just speak.
They want to sound as intelligent in English as they do in their native language right from the start.
Which is an impossible standard.
It really is. We need a serious reality check here. Perfect never happens. Even native speakers make grammatical errors, mix up words, and lose their train of thought. Waiting for perfection is exactly what keeps you paralyzed.
So we really have to redefine what it means to be fluent. The sources we are looking at have a brilliant definition. Fluency is speaking comfortably, not speaking perfectly.
Comfort over perfection. Every language learner needs to write that down.
It is completely okay to use simple sentences. It is okay to repeat your favorite expressions. And it is absolutely okay to make small mistakes if the other person still understands your message.
The ability to think in English truly begins the moment you accept good enough in real time. When you tell yourself, this sentence isn't beautiful, but it communicates my thought, your brain relaxes. The stress disappears.
And when your brain relaxes, the English flows so much more naturally because it no longer feels like a whiskey test.
Exactly. Communication happens. You share your idea. That is the entire point of language.
Not passing a grammar exam.
Exactly. But as we adopt this new mindset and these new tools, we also need to manage our expectations. Training this muscle takes time.
Right. Because let's be honest, you are not going to magically think in English for 24 hours a day starting tomorrow morning. And that is completely okay.
The real goal is just to incrementally increase the number of minutes you stay in English. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day is significant progress.
The notes use a gym analogy here, which I think illustrates the process perfectly. Training your brain to think in English is exactly like training a muscle or going to the gym.
It is a physical rewiring of your neural pathways. When you go to the gym for the first time, you don't walk in and try to lift heavy weights right away. You start with the light weights.
And the next morning, you feel sore, and you don't look any stronger in the mirror.
You feel tired and frustrated. That is exactly how your brain feels after your first few days of trying the 1-minute monologue. It feels messy and exhausting.
But you have to push through that initial fatigue. You need patience.
You will not notice a massive change in a single day. But if you stay consistent with these simple habits, if you narrate your morning routine, you will absolutely feel the difference in a few weeks.
It slowly becomes automatic. The English thinking muscle gets stronger and faster, and that native language translation muscle finally gets a rest.
It just takes a little bit of time and a lot of consistency.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. We have unpacked the psychological need for safety, the vital importance of consistent input, and how to stop sabotaging ourselves with the dictionary.
And we covered those 4 practical exercises: narrating, the monologue, the English-only zone, and replacing words.
So, as we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to leave you with a direct call to action. We want you to commit right now. Choose just one of the small daily exercises we discussed.
Just pick one. Keep it simple. Try it today.
Will you try narrating your actions while you make dinner tonight? Or will you set a timer for a 1-minute monologue before you go to bed? Choose one.
And remember to keep getting that easy input. You can listen to this audio again while taking a walk or doing chores. Don't worry about understanding every single word. Just let your brain get comfortable.
Every minute you spend on the language counts. To close out, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We learned that the brain will always choose the path that feels the safest. So what small thing can you do tomorrow morning to make English feel just a little bit more like a safe harbor, rather than a risky test?
That is the perfect question to reflect on. Remove the pressure, accept the mistakes, and the fluency will follow.
Thank you so much for exploring these notes with us. Keep practicing, keep making those beautiful mistakes, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.